Welcome back to my workshop journey, and this is episode 24. Can you believe it? In fact, I had to check myself. We're coming up for 1 year since I first started making these video journals. It was the 7th of August in 2021 that I started, and I cannot believe we're at that 1 year anniversary already. I feel I've come quite a long way in improving the quality of my woodworking. I'm very grateful for the suggestions that my neighbour Tim has made, and we're going to carry on with that mystery project. You remember at the end of the last episode I said, do you know what it is yet? Well, we're getting closer to me making that reveal, but what we're going to do this afternoon is take up Tim's suggestion of cutting little channels in the legs to support the base on the corners, and then we'll take that next step. So here we've got the first of the rails fitted into the leg, and if you remember from previous episode, this is the channel at the bottom of the middle rail that's going to take the base of the box that forms the top part of the workpiece. Tim's suggestion, and it was a conclusion I'd come to myself, was rather than take the corner out of the base of the box, take the slot, extend the slot into the leg, so it will be taking that out like that down to a depth of about 10 millimeters, and then it will support the corners of the base. You won't be able to see daylight through the base when the lid's open, and I'd come to that conclusion as well, but thanks ever so much, Tim. It will make the whole piece look much better. So all I'm going to do now is mark up with the 4 rails where the 8 slots will need to come out, and that way we can keep everything even. Now here we've got the first 2 rails in place, and because of, I knew it was going to happen at some point, what I thought was very meticulous cutting has meant that I've not properly aligned these 2 slots. But I don't want the whole workpiece to become misaligned in any way. So what I'm going to do is see how all of the other 4 corner posts, the legs, match up, but I'm thinking this edge here, sorry, it's the base, isn't it? So it's going to have to be this edge here. I'm thinking I'm going to have to take out a little more of this edge of the slot so that the 2 base sides line up. I'm just going to check all of the other 4 corners, and because I want to make sure that all of the base edge line up and it won't end up in a twist of the workpiece. So this is the first time I've actually put the whole of the piece together, and it's given me a good idea of how the whole project will need to be assembled. But as I mentioned, I'm looking at how even the lower slots are for the base, and most of the time I think I can live with the discrepancy. The only one that needs to be adjusted is this rail. This is maybe 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters out. Now I've got plenty to play with, because if you remember when I was cutting these slots, they are 8 millimeters from the bottom of the piece, so I've got room to work with. But this side I have to take out maybe 3 millimeters to make sure that the bottom of the base doesn't strain too much. So I'm just going to mark that piece up, and then we can make that adjustment. Just a quick adjustment on this bottom rail here, and now all of the slots are generally in line. The little bit of distortion I can take up with a little bit of sanding. So that's that done. It's given me a good idea of how the rails are going to go in the actual clamping up and gluing, and so let me think of what the next step is. Right, the next job I've decided, you'll notice I've got one of the webbing straps holding the workpiece together, because the next thing I need to do before I do any more working on the frame is to make sure that the base is the correct size. Now, how I've made it, it's oversized, so I need to cut it down to size. I need to have the frame in place so I can then take the actual measurements on both dimensions. Then I can cut the base down to size. Then I can cut the little corners out of the legs. So it took me a little while to get the hang of these webbing straps. It's the first time really I've used them, but it's good practice for when I actually come to glue the project up. So as I say, I've got the frame all together. I'm just going to measure the size of the base. So here's the base. It was 4 of the strips of white oak, and I've left them as roughly glued because I'm going to be tidying them up when I've got everything cut to size. But you notice it is very oversized. That was the whole intention, so that I could then size it accurately. So first things first, make sure everything is square. Not quite. That one is a little off. But you'll notice everything is just pushed into place nicely, so that gives me confidence that the joints are actually square. Okay, dimension number 1 is from inside face to inside face, 406 millimeters. 406, and the opposite face is 407. Okay. This face is 307, and the opposite face is 307. So it's only 1 millimeter out all the way around. That's satisfying for me. It's the first time I've had a project that is really this square. Right, so that's the overall inside, that's the apparent dimension, but of course because of the slots that the base is going to go into, I now need to add how much, and I can't remember how big I made these slots, how deep. I think it was 10 millimeters. No, it was 8. So if I add 5 millimeters to all dimensions, so that's 406 becomes 411, 407 becomes 412, and then 307 becomes 312. Right, I will just mark that up on the base, and then I can cut it to size. Now then, I know that that edge and this edge are perfectly flat and straight, so I'm going to be in fact this edge here is the smoothest, so I will make all of the measurements from this edge. So if I go for, now this needs to be a maximum of 412, so I'm going to make both sides 412 millimeters. There we go. And get the square. 412. Make sure that is nice and square. And 312. Three, 1, 2. I could have got away with just 3 boards. That's okay. Just extend that line. So those are my cut lines. Now that means I could have done away with this without this panel here. They're all, what's the word? They've all got biscuit joints, so cutting across there, I'm going to be cutting into the biscuit. That doesn't matter because it won't be seen. This bit will be inside one of the slots, so nothing is going to be seen on the edges. So that's fine. I will cut on the bandsaw and then I can smooth this out. So I've set the bandsaw up. I've made sure that this line here is matching perfectly with the fence at both ends, so when I start to rip against the fence, that's going to produce a nice cut. Right. And as I mentioned before, there's the remnants of the biscuits, and that doesn't matter. They are loose fitting. They were intended to be loose fitting. I didn't glue them in, if you remember, going back quite a few weeks now. But those won't be seen because they will be inside the frame. So I can reuse that piece. Let me just these because these edges now are not square, I'm going to have to free cut these two edges, but that won't pose a problem. That's the base of the box, nicely cut to size. When it comes to just sanding down, that will be an easy job. Now I've marked all of the legs for where I need to cut out the corners of the base. But what I want to try, I need to work out how I'm going to actually cut it. Now my thought, because I need both sides square and because I need the bottom squarish as well, I wondered, can I use the mortiser and just take out the corner? Now because the slot is 8mm, I've still got the 8mm chisel in the machine, so this is a scrap piece that's roughly the same size as the leg. I'm just going to adjust the position so that it's on the edge of the workpiece. The depth should be 10mm, but I'm going to double check that. Let's see how far that goes down. No, that's far too much. That is looking like 20mm. So adjust the depth first. I've checked the depth and I've marked off 9mm deep. The chisel is on the edge of the workpiece, so let's see how this cuts. So that's got both sides square. Let me get the scrap piece of base. That fits into the corner very nicely, and let me just check the depth from the edge. Right, I'm going to need to go a little bit deeper, but it's taken the corner out nicely and it's kept the edges very square. That's a nice finish, so that's perfectly workable. So let me just take the depth down slightly. Let me make another test. But it needs to come in from the edge slightly as well. So yep, let's tighten that off and try again. So that is now 9mm from the face, and $9mm. Try not to move the gauge. Yeah, that's 9, and that's about 9mm. Okay, that should be fine. That's given me plenty of wiggle room and I'm happy with that. It will just need that little bit of tidying up after I've cut all of the joints. So let me get the proper pieces. Need to slightly adjust the stop. Okay. The depth doesn't need changing, but there we go. Tighten that up and while I was doing those cuts, it's a good 8mm from the edge now. That's where I needed it, so I thought I will just turn the workpiece around and cut that piece there. And that will need very little tidying up with a very sharp chisel, but that's good. That will mean the base of the box will fit nicely. There we go then, just tidy that up. Won't take much to just pull those big pieces out and smooth the base off. But I'm very pleased with that result, and I'm glad I came up with the idea. I've been puzzling all week how to do this, and then all of a sudden the idea came to me. So that's tidied up very nicely. I'm very pleased with that, and just do the other four. I'd never thought about using a mortiser to do this. I thought mortisers were just for cutting mortisers, but my journey continues. Okay, so that's fitting in there very nicely. That gives the corner a lovely support, and that's going to look good. Excellent. Pop the chisel back, and just looking at the time, it's time to pack up, and we'll come back to this next week, because next time, or in the next segment, I'm going to be tapering the legs from the bottom rail down to the bottom of the workpiece, and I'm going to be tapering from the inside so that the outside corner will stay straight, and I'm going to take this corner and this corner down by half, so from full width to halfway on two sides. That means the bottom will be a quarter of its size, but I've done that on another project some time ago, and I was very pleased with the look of the whole piece. Now, as I've just said, the legs I want to taper in two directions, and all of them are going to be untouched on this outside corner. So the masking tape is marking the outside of the piece. That corner will be left untouched, which means I'm going to be cutting from that side and that side. Now, so I can get things right and straight in my own mind, one of my test scrap pieces, and so I've just marked off where the bottom rail will come. So that's the test piece there. Those are the two sides I'm going to be keeping, and so therefore I'm going to be cutting that side and that side, and I'm just going to try marking it up and then see how I go about cutting it. That's where I'm going to be cutting. I'm going to be taking half of the bottom of the piece out from the sides that I'm cutting. So what I want to be doing is, if I'm going to be cutting that side and that, I really want to be marking that, which is on this piece 27. So let's mark 13 and a half there. So from that corner to halfway, which is there, that's that line, and then halfway down here will be outside, halfway. That's 24, so 12. I'm good at maths, aren't I? Okay, so that will go across there. Just doing this freehand just to give me an idea. That will go across there. So it's that corner that's stopping, so all of these are going to be coming out. So I will be cutting down there. And that's going, no, I'm glad I did this. I've done that the wrong way round. It's that, because otherwise I'm going to be taking out the outside. So that's the bit that comes out on that one, and it's that one that comes out on this. I'm looking forward very much to the time when I will be able to visualize things in 3D and do it without thinking. That's very painful. So that's the bit that's coming out of this one. That's the first sliver off, and that's looking good. So that's the bit that I want to keep. That's fine. No, that's going to be the bit I keep, isn't it? So I'm going to be losing that bit because that is now going to need to go from there to there. You can't see, can you? That's going to go from there to there. So I'm going to have to remark that because that's the corner I want to keep. I'm glad I did this exercise. So let's mark that thus, and let's take that like that. So that's the bit that's being lost. Okay. So two outside edges, tapering from the inside, and that looks all right. Okay, so I'm going to have to mark one side and then remark after I've done the cut. That's fine. So this is the work leg. That's the test piece I've just cut, and you'll be able to see there how the effect will look. So there's going to be quite a big gap taking it from the inside down to the corner, but when that's smoothed off and the edge is just taken down slightly, that's going to give a very pleasing effect. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. So that's how the piece is going to go, from that line there down to the bottom. Okay, so now I can see how that's working. Let me get the two corners correct. That way I can see exactly where I need to cut. So that's going to be like that. So that's going to go like that. So it's going to be that edge that comes out, and it's going to be that edge that comes out. Right, let me mark up all of the corners, all of the bottoms of the legs, so I know where the halfway point is, and then I can make the proper cuts. And what I've done is aligned all four legs so that I've got all of the outside on this side of the leg. All of these mortises represent the same position in each leg. I've just marked the first one, so I thought I'd do it this way, and then I can use that as the reference as to where I'm going to be working. So on all of these it's 12mm from the edge, there we go, and on all of them it's from this corner to the middle. There we go, and that one, that one, and that one. Right, just need to cut those and then I can mark the second side. Cut number one on all four legs, just going to mark up the second side and then cut those. That's the second set of cuts. Let's have a look. All four legs now cut, but my cutting is and marking out is priceless. this leg here, I haven't come up high enough with the cut on either of the two cuts, so I'm just going to run that little bit through the saw again just to even things out, because it will stand out like a sore thumb, but by and large the legs are now very thin by comparison, and that's going to look quite elegant, I think. Let me just trim this one down. And that's looking a lot better and much more even straight across here. The little discrepancies won't be noticed now, so that's good. We are coming to that point where I'm going to start gluing up. That's nice. Although before I glue up, I've just thought I will need to give them a light sand just to take off some of the rough edges. Now, I don't know about anybody else's preferences for sanding, but I tend to use the Bosch PSM 160. It's a very handy size for small work like this, and I've got a range of sanding sheets: 40 grit, 80 grit, 120 grit. Now, because this is going to be the first sand and nothing is really rough that needs taking down, I'm just going to be starting off with 80 grit and give it a quick once over with 80, then 120, just to smooth everything off, and we'll see how that goes. So 80 grit. Even that, just that 80 grit for those few seconds has made that a very pleasing piece of work. Just a little bit of burn there that I can take out, but yeah, I'll crack on with the rest of the sanding and then get back to you in a minute. Four raised panels done. Let me get the rest of the work and we'll give that a good whiz. Now, this is the base, and there's quite a bit of glue left from when I actually put the pieces together, so this is where I'm going to be using the 40 grit just to take that down, and then we can move down to the 80. That's got rid of all of the glue marks. That's still a little proud just on that line there, so I'll just do a little bit more on this side just to get rid of these tiny lips here. So that's taking it down to 40 grit. Just have a run over with the 80 and then that one will be done. Of course, with the rails and legs, I want to be able to remember where marks are. Now on the tenons, I've actually written the joint there. So that's okay. I want to remember which is the outside though, which is the bottom. So just out for my own memory, I've just taken the masking tape off. I'll do that and then put the masking tape back. Because of course I've got the face edge face side marks that I need to remove, and on the inside I've got all of the construction markings I need to remove as well. Need to get rid of the pencil marks before I start to glue up. But thinking about it, rather than keep using this palm now, with the amount that I still have to sand, I'm going to get the belt sander out and give it a good blast with that. Now here's the rub. This is the belt sander that I have. It's a Skill, the 900 watt size, and these hold down brackets are here and they slot into those two holes there, and then you bolt it upside down to the workbench. The problem is, since I last used this, I've rebuilt the bench, and now let me try and show you. With the sander there, as I usually had it, with the brackets in those two holes, that throat depth is now too big for this. I could cut a slot section out so that I can still use that, but I don't really want to do that. I need something that I can still put in there and screw onto. So what I thought was, if I have a strong piece of ply like this 12mm and have it overhanging the edge of the workbench here, I can then bolt that like that. How am I going to hold this onto the workbench? And if you remember from several episodes ago, one of the toys that I bought were these two T-Track slider bars. So I'm just going to drill a couple of holes in the piece of wood here. That will take the two bolts and nut so I can screw it down, and then I can screw the sander to this. I think that's going to work. I know that's a bit bowed. I'll get a better piece of wood, because ideally that could do with being flat to the bench. But that's what I'm thinking. And I'll leave it there for today, because this is going to take some thinking out. The next episode I'll have sorted out the problem, and we can then crack on with sanding the pieces down. So thanks for watching this afternoon, evening, night, morning, wherever you might be in this world that we live in, and thanks for watching.